So this short video will introduce you to the MITI behavioral coding system for MI. MITI stands for the Motivational Interviewing Treatment Integrity Manual. So what is the MITI used for? The MITI is basically a rating system for rating how well or how poorly a practitioner is using MI. And it evaluates the four processes within MI: engaging, focusing, evoking and planning. It's often used as a treatment integrity measure for clinical trials of MI. So what that means is that it's used to measure how well a practitioner is adhering to MI strategies and the ethos of MI in clinical trials. But more importantly, the MITI also gives us detailed feedback that we can use to increase our clinical skills in the practice of MI. And that's our main reason for using it. It's also worth pointing out at this stage that the MITI typically isn't used in sessions where there isn't a specific change target or change goal. When there's no clear behaviour change being discussed, we don't use it, or indeed where there's equipoise being where there's no obvious better option to direct your client towards. So the MITI has two broad components, and these are the global ratings and the behaviour counts. And when you're looking at scoring these two components of the MITI, basically you just select a random 20-minute segment of the interview and you use that as the basis for scoring both the global ratings and the behaviour counts. So you wouldn't apply these scorings or rating tools across the entire interview, just a random 20-minute segment. So first of all, the global ratings on the left hand side there. The global ratings consist of four different dimensions. You can see them there listed under technical components. You've got cultivating change talk, you've got softening sustained talk, and another category of global ratings, you've got relational components, and these are partnership and empathy. So they're the four ones there: cultivating change talk, softening sustained talk, partnership and empathy. And basically when you're listening back to the consultation, you assign a score of 1 to 5 for each of those different dimensions. More about that in a second. The behaviour counts on the right then, these are a separate part of the MITI and not really been explained in this video, but just suffice to say that the behaviour counts just require you to count the number of times that you spot these behaviours within the 20-minute consultation. And again, I'll explain more about that in another video. So how do the global scores work? Well, global scores are intended to capture your overall impression of how well or how poorly you meet the description of the dimension being measured. And when I say dimension, I mean one of those four different components: cultivating change talk, softening sustained talk, partnership and empathy. So the global scores are like a holistic evaluation of your skills without paying very close attention to the micro skills of MI, which is what the behaviour counts does. So the global ratings are more about your macro impression of the 20-minute segment. So how do you assign your global scores for each of these four dimensions? Well, the first thing you need to do obviously is listen to the audio recording, the 20-minute segment that you've chosen. Next, you need to decide where to pitch yourself on a Likert scale of 1 to 5 for each of those four dimensions. So let's look at cultivating change talk, the first of the four different dimensions. In the manual gives you verbal anchors and examples which help you to assign an appropriate score for that dimension. So for the first dimension here, cultivating change talk, we learned that a low score of 1 should be assigned if we only focus on the client's problems, if we ignore client change talk, and if we are the ones supplying the reasons for change. On the other hand, a high score of 5 would be assigned when we strategically elicit change talk and we consistently respond to it. It is useful to have a really good knowledge of what the low and high scores look like for each of the four dimensions before you actually record the interview. They almost act as a guide to improving your skills. So that was the first of the four dimensions of the global ratings, and the manual provides the same verbal anchors and examples for the other three. We've got softening sustained talk here, we've got partnership, and you've got empathy. So you have those verbal anchors and examples across the 4 dimensions. So lastly, once you've assigned your scores to the 4 dimensions, the next thing we do is to see where we rate in terms of MI proficiency in these areas. So to do this, we just get the average of the technical components and the average of the relational components separately, and then we compare our scores to what we call proficiency tables. So let's take an example. Just let me get a pen here. Let's say we've assigned ourselves a score of 4 for cultivating change talk and a score of 2 for softening sustain talk. We go back over to our formula for our technical global score, and we know that getting an average just means adding the 2 scores together and dividing by 2. So 4 plus 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3. We go down to our proficiency table and we see that 3 means that our proficiency level is at fair. So we could improve, not too bad. It gives us an idea of where we stand. You also do the same, follow the same process for the relational components, and then you compare across the top of the table, the top row, the relational components. So that's the global scores part of the MITI. The behavior counts then will be explained in another video.